Hi there, my name's Jane Anderson and this is the Jane Anderson Brand You Show. It's the podcast for experts who want to have greater impact, influence and income for their businesses and careers. As experts, we know that people buy from people and work with people who they know, who they like and who they trust. So I'm so glad you're here because it's that time again now to really amplify how you show up in the world. Okay, so welcome. It's the Jane Anderson Brand You Show. I'm so excited to come online today and to be able to share our guests with you because, as you know, we love to hear about people's stories and examples of people who have set up their businesses under yourname.com. And because you are what makes your business unique. And today we have an incredible guest. He is an inspirational speaker, facilitator, author, and mountaineer, would you believe? He has 15 years experience as a professional consultant, particularly in the oil and gas, mining and land development sector across Australia and Southeast Asia. But I think this is pretty incredible. He also has achieved an incredible goal, which was an unguided ascent to Mount Everest or up Mount Everest. Isn't that just extraordinary? But he's got some incredible skills that he's been able to bring from that experience as well. And he draws on his mountaineering experience skills, particularly around this concept of VUCA, which is V stands for volatility, U is uncertainty, the C is complexity, and A is ambiguity. He's a certified speaking professional. There's only 7% of speakers in the world have that certification. And he's one of the world-renowned TedX presenters. You might have seen TED, perhaps YouTube videos and things like that. So he's a TedX presenter. But above all, he's a great human being, nice bloke, and he's a husband and a dad. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got Patrick Hollingworth. How are you, Patrick?
I'm very well, thank you, Jane. What an introduction.
Well, I wish my bio read like that, or climb Mount Everest. Jeez.
I'll just go with husband and dad if you like.
You're very humble, but you know, you're just extraordinary. That's really just an incredible bio to read out. You know, can you tell us a bit about that? What made you climb Mount Everest? What would make you do that?
It's funny because to you it seems incredible, but to me, and I especially noticed this not long after summiting Everest, people going, "Wow, I can't believe you did it!" And it wasn't a big deal to me because I've got a whole bunch of mates who've climbed Everest. So,
yeah. But
you know, as you do in your spare time. I've been mountaineering since, or had an interest in the mountains since probably the late 90s, and ever since I was at university, and just started out trekking and then progressively learned rock climbing and then technical mountaineering, and then started doing stuff in the Himalayas and spent about sort of 10 years doing stuff in the Himalayas, and eventually I'd set my sights on Everest, and I was really, really fortunate to be able to summit Everest on my first attempt in 2010. And I love being in the mountains, and being a very goal-orientated person. If you're a mountaineer, I guess it's inevitable at some point in time that you start thinking about climbing those really, really big 8,000-metre peaks. And I've been really lucky to have a fairly long association with the Himalayas as a result of that.
Wow. So this kind of, this really comes back to your... we talk a bit about some of the other episodes, and we talk about Brand You, about that 10,000 hours, and from the work that Malcolm Gladwell did in Blink, and he talked about, to be able to be an expert at something, you've got 10,000 hours, and your 10,000 hours, so you started mountaineering quite a young age. It wasn't like you had like this midlife crisis where you went, that's it, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. You've been doing this type of, you've been doing that since you were, did you say while you were at uni?
Yeah, look, I was really lucky. My mum and dad had a real sort of natural affinity with the outdoors, and so I'm one of 4 kids, and so most of our holidays were spent camping and the like. So we're all, as a family, we're pretty comfortable knocking about in the bush. and then that led me to like at university I studied a weird mixture actually of anthropology, geography, and psychology. But in retrospect, it totally makes sense with what I do now. And so just having that natural love of the outdoors, and the first time I really went to the mountains, I think I was 18 or 19, and I sort of thought, yeah, this is where I belong. And then, over the subsequent sort of decade, been lucky enough to really put in that 10,000 hours or so, and get quite good at one thing. And then at the same time in my consulting work, I guess I put in my 10,000 hours in that regard, and I got to understand how large organisations operate in big industry and the like, and through that, I guess I was able to combine those two. That's 20,000 hours.
Yeah, it is.
into what I do now. So
beyond the expert, creating experts. So just on that, so tell us a bit more about the type of business that you have, and the people you help, and how do you help them?
Yeah, so my business is essentially, I guess, if you were to categorise it, you might call me a consultant, or a consultant who also works as a professional speaker.
Right.
I've been working as a consultant to industry for, as I said previously, for a number of years, for more than a decade. But I was really specialising more in the geography side of things. I was working as an environmental consultant, helping large-scale oil and gas projects and mining projects get their approvals. But the having had that success in the mountains and then developing a sort of essentially a side career as a professional speaker, that really opened the door to me being able to go, okay, well, I think there's something really powerful here, I guess, and that sort of gave me the foot in the door to some of the larger organisations, which is who I tend to work with now. So essentially, I help large organisations contend with uncertainty. A lot of people sort of throw mud at large organisations. Sometimes they're a little bit unpopular. Sometimes they're perceived to be the bad guys. But in a way, I have a lot of empathy for them. I've worked in one myself, and organisations, large organisations at least, their time in the sun essentially, I reckon, was the sort of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. But they're really struggling with this. We all know that the landscape is changing, but particularly that rate of change. And I think that through my experiences, I've found some really cool solutions in terms of how larger groups can actually deal with the volatility, the uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that everybody's having to contend with today. So that's essentially sort of who I help. I work in that space primarily with the larger organisations. Not to say that I don't work with smaller groups as well. Yes. But I feel that that's where my knowledge, I guess, can best be applied and is of greatest value.
Yeah, right. Because I imagine, a bit like if you're in one of those larger organisations, because I've worked with larger organisations, but most of my clients are sort of probably more medium type, and I guess their ability to adapt to change is one of their strengths. They can move fairly fast, but if you're in a large organisation, I guess that would be one of the challenges, is just purely the size of it. Means that it's a slower ship to turn around sometimes.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you want to look at the origins of the concept of VUCA itself, it's with the US military at the end of the Cold War in the early 1990s, and the US military was as a result of its success in World War II and then sort of going through the Cold War, they'd become incredibly large and incredibly powerful, and were essentially the world police. But they suddenly found themselves in an environment without previously it was a bilateral environment. It was the East sort of versus the West kind of thing. Whereas now, or overnight, they sort of found themselves in a new environment with lots of smaller non-state entities and the like. IS is a classic example. And so they kind of realised, right, we've got to adapt to these changing circumstances. And so, whereas before the saying was might is right, that doesn't really kind of apply now, because these combatants are much smaller and more agile and nimble, and they realised they needed to I guess reorganise the way they dealt with their enemies, so to speak. And so they came up with this concept of VUCA. That was the all-encompassing one word which summarised the landscape which they identified they needed to be comfortable operating in. then it sort of got picked up in the business vernacular in the past few years, and I think it's a very, very apt description of the landscape that we're all playing in at the moment.
And that's interesting, because if I'm thinking about your brand and your name and your business. At what point did you realise there's a parallel here between me climbing mountains and the consulting work that you're doing? Did you have this light bulb moment that just came to you, or was it gradual? Or
yeah, no, it was definitely not the light bulb moment. It was very gradual, and my progression. Doing what I do now, essentially I'm sort of into my fifth or sixth year, and it really started out with just speaking on the side, and initially I was like, oh, awesome, they're going to pay me to tell my story, to speak about me, how cool is that? And it's, and you just you laugh at it now, but at the time it's just so egocentric and really self-indulgent. And I did that for a year or two, but I gradually learned that no, actually it's not about you at all. It's really about the I guess what you're bringing, what lessons you're bringing to the audience, or what you're sharing together. It's not about you, it's not about them, it's about us, kind of thing. And so I guess over my career as a speaker, I've progressed, and not really a light bulb moment as such, but I knew that as a speaker talking about something they did, that you had a very limited shelf life, and I started feeling uncomfortable. I got bored talking about it, and I needed sort of more meaning in what I was doing. And so it was when I was introduced to the thought leaders community in Australia, and through the work of Matt Church and Pete Cook, and obviously you and I know each other through the thought leaders community. That's when I started really appreciating. Oh, okay, so it's not about what you've done; it's about actually what you know and how that knowledge can help others.
Yes.
So it really was. Yeah, it's been 5 years. For me to really work out, okay, now I know exactly who I can help and how I can help them, and getting a lot more niched in how I do that. Whereas before, it was a much more broader sort of, I wasn't exactly aware of the value that I could offer to my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite a common call it a mistake for speakers, especially early on in their career, and particularly speakers who have accomplished something, because naturally they're talking about themselves, but the whole reason an audience is listening to that speaker is because the audience wants to learn and to improve their own life.
Yes.
And so rather than inward focusing, learning to be outward focusing and focusing on the value that you bring to the room.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Patrick, because I remember you made a comment there before where you said it's not about what you've done, but it's more about what you know. And I remember when I was looking at speaking, I used to think, I'd been a trainer and a coach for years, and I wanted to do speaking, but I thought, I haven't been in the Olympics, I haven't climbed Mount Everest, I've got all my limbs, I haven't recovered from cancer. I haven't, I don't have anything inspiring to say. I'm so practical. I just focus on what will get a result and an outcome, and let's just do that. But I had Annalie on the podcast just recently, and she said the same thing. And so I guess that's interesting to hear you say that it's not necessarily about climbing Mount Everest. It's about what you know from that experience, and also your consulting experience, and then creating some meaning with that for your audience. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what I was doing in the early days, when you boil it down, it was essentially about entertainment. And I'm not an entertainer, and yet I would be speaking at after-dinner events and the like, and I haven't spoken at an after-dinner event for a couple of years now. And I've got no problems with that, because I find those dinner events hard work, and in a way you feel like you're almost being rolled out as the latest sort of shiny object for people to look at. But it's when you stand in your conviction of what you know and how it will help people, that's when you bring about change for the people you work for your clients, but also you find really deep meaning in the work that you do yourself. And we're all here. We've got an awesome opportunity in our lives to do something with our lives, and that's what drives me and why I do this type of work now. I get to work with some fantastic people. I get to mix with some amazing thought leader colleagues, and I personally grow a lot through that process as well. And it enables me the autonomy to spend time with my family and to have that autonomy in my life. Whereas previously, as a salaried consultant, that really wasn't an option.
I see. Okay. And so that's just to go into this next question that I've got, which is from, going from a salaried consultant. Now you're under yourname.com. What made you decide to not be VUCA.com or any other, whatever your message is, because you do a lot of leadership work and strategy and, agility, particularly in those types of environments. What made you decide to use your name instead of those messages that you have?
Yeah, sure. And so hopefully not to disappoint you, but there wasn't some very clever, savvy strategy or anything like that. It was really by default. Okay. When I set up my website pre-going to Everest in late 2009 or early 2010, I remember sort of umming and ahhing, going, should I have it as patrickhollingworth.com or should I have it as everestclimb.com or something like that? Yeah. And for whatever reason, I went, look, I'll just go with my name, really not appreciating that there would be any use for the website post Everest. I mean, I set up the website purely to drum up some sponsorship and to document and blog to my website. So when I was on the mountain, I was actually blogging every day, and I was posting blogs from 8,000 meters and stuff like that, which is pretty awesome. But I didn't ever intend the website to go beyond that, and I didn't realise that that would open the door for this new career in life that I have. So initially, it was just that I thought, I'll just go with patrickhollingworth.com, and it was probably at about that time that I started seeing a lot of other people and, sort of registering their own names. And so I was just fortunate that I kind of made that decision early on, and I haven't really had to change it. I guess it works around the idea of if you're known for knowing something, if you're really the thought leader or the authority, the expert in your field, it's your name that they know. Yeah. It's not VUCA or it's not leadership. It's your name. Jane, you're known for your specialty, and it's not because it's LinkedIn or anything like that. What differentiates you from everybody else is that it's you and your name and all the good work that you do. Yes,
and so you've had an extraordinary journey. What are the benefits that have you seen from yourself? Like I know I've certainly found it just gets better cut through, and people connect with people. I always say people buy from people. But has there been anything that you particularly noticed that you thought, okay, now I see that's because of patrickhollingworth.com or because you're operating under your name? Is there anything like that you've specifically noticed?
Well, look, I reckon the best thing about it is that it enables you to change and not have to constantly change your website domain. I mean, let's say I started out as inspirational speaker or Everest speaker or whatever, and that's not what I do now. Or if you start out as a teamwork expert, or and then 2 years later, you're changing, and as we both know, as you go on this journey, you're constantly changing and evolving. But by sticking to your name.com, that's your little home base. That's your base camp at the foot of the mountain, and you might go off and climb one mountain, and then come back to base camp, and then go off and climb another mountain across the other side of the valley. But you're still coming back to your own name.com, your base camp, and that can evolve as you evolve. So that's, I think, what is probably one of the benefits of doing it.
Oh, I like that analogy. That's like base camp, and so you can have. I love that. So you can have a number of different mountains. It's not just about Everest, but it's about all these other mountains. Your actually real focus is not. It's actually base camp that's your foundation and where you're coming back to. But you've got all these other opportunities, which are different mountains.
Yeah. Look, and let's continue this metaphor, if you will. And I didn't pre-plan this, Jane. It just popped out. But you get to the summit of Everest or whatever, and what do you do after that? You can't keep doing that again. And I've faced that same problem myself. And I think that, you've got to be open to doing different things. And as I said, you're probably over time, everybody's journey is evolving, and it's not just the one thing that you're doing. It's not just the one mountain that you're going to climb. You've always got to go back home or get back down the mountain to base camp and check in and recover and rest before the next push. And having yourname.com certainly gives you that flexibility, and it doesn't mean that you just have to keep climbing that same mountain again and again.
Yes.
You can see where the opportunities are. Hey, I'm really on a roll with this metaphor. The weather might be bad on one mountain, so you go, but over there across the valley, that mountain is beautiful sunshine and it's in great condition. The ice is perfect. I'm going to do that. And again, it's all that about that. That agility, and I mean everything I do is around VUCA and the response to VUCA being agile, I refer to it as alpine style, this particular style of mountaineering where you climb light, hard, and fast, and that's sort of the mentality I'm sort of introducing into organisations, and I think that you can certainly use it for your own thought leadership or your own solo consultancy or speaking business and the like.
Right. Oh, that's nice. So Alpine style. So it gives you. So yourname.com is giving you, and for others, that flexibility. You can go Alpine style and you can pick your mountain if the conditions are right. I love all that. Oh, that's what the beauty. Janine Garner, the guru of collaboration, would be very
fabulous,
proud of
Janine.
us right now. I think that's very cool. I like that. Well, isn't it wonderful how you get just that ideas and those that come together? That's awesome. And so have you? I think one of the things, I don't know if you've had this situation, but one of the things that I find sometimes when people are considering setting up their business name, or they're a bit scared of setting up yourname.com, because one, they might be a bit scared that maybe I appear too small, or they are also a bit scared of them being the face. In Australia we have this pretty laid back culture where we're not Kim Kardashian, or we're saying, look at me and I'm so good. I guess, have you had any challenges in your business as a result of being the face of it? Other than people coming up and wanting autographs? I hear you're famous in Perth.
Absolutely, but I guess when I'm talking about the idea that it's not about you, and it's not about them, it's about us and what we're doing together, kind of thing. That might sound in contrast to the idea that it's patrickhollingworth.com. And I absolutely had major issues with it initially. I'm quite shy. I'm definitely an introvert, and I guess I had some beliefs around people who promote themselves, and I guess probably a real estate agent might be the classic example of somebody who puts their picture of their face, on their business card and on the big advert by the train station and the like. And for me, that was kind of difficult to initially to get my head around.
Right.
Obviously, it means that you're more exposed to any criticism. If you operate under your business name, then you're hiding. You're not hiding, but you've got that business name to protect you. Whereas when it's you, it's you.
Yep.
And so I think that what you need to do is just develop a bit of a tough exterior and just deal with the crap that gets hung on you at times. And I've had that, and I'm much better at now than what I used to be. Okay. But there's always room for improvement. So I'm definitely more resilient than what I was a few years ago. But as I said, and there's some fantastic role models in our thought leader community, and Christina Guidotti, for example, springs to mind as somebody who I think has fantastic resilience and sort of strength, and she puts herself out there, and and Matt Church obviously is another example of that. I used to feel that there was a bit of ickiness around sort of pushing who I was, but I now am much better at the idea of going, well, no, it's not about me, it's about the value that I can kind of create with my client. And if they don't like it, if they don't want to take up the offering, that's totally cool. And there's no desperation there of a sale. It's about wanting to do good work with good people. And if it happens, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. There's lots of other opportunities out there. So it's a bit of that sort of that sharing mentality and growth mindset kind of thing.
Right. So if you had your time again, Patrick, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yeah. Well, no. Look, probably. I guess you grow from all the mistakes you make, and I certainly made a lot. I found that in the early days, because I didn't know what I was doing, there's a lot of small businesses out there who I don't know if prey on small business people is the right word, but a lot of people give me advice saying, you've got to get SEO done on your website, and I go, oh, okay, and I sign myself up for $1,000 a month package and all this stuff, and just throwing money away. And the problem with all of that stuff is that you're basically looking out for other ways to help you grow your business, as opposed to looking in and developing yourself, developing your own ideas, and working out how they're valuable. And I know what you and I in our thought leadership community have learned. It's about really working out who you are, what you stand for, what your ideas are, and if you get that right, people will want them, and you don't need to do all that other peripheral stuff, which for the most part I reckon can be a waste of money. So yeah, look, I've made lots of mistakes in terms of wasting money on search engine optimization, and I once paid a fee to be included in a business book, and it wasn't really a business book; it was a book of motivational speakers. And when I saw it, it just reeked of cheese, and I just thought, oh my God, what have I done? My reputation is really important. But fortunately, I knew that none of my clients who I'll be working with in a few years' time would even be reading that kind of stuff anyway. So, look, if I went back and did it again, I'd do things differently, but I'm much better at what I do now as a result of having had those learning experiences. And I think one thing's really important to recognise is that, whenever I look to any of my mentors and some of the leaders in Australia, they've also made the same mistakes, and it's okay to kind of make those mistakes as well. We all mess up occasionally.
Oh, I was the same. I think I said one of my earlier podcasts, that was exactly the experience I had. I was caught up in the whole internet marketing thing of SEO, and I think I lost it was like $12,000 at one point on SEO, and it just drove me crazy. I was going, I can't sustain this, and it was, but I didn't have a myname.com site at the time, but going to yourname.com, and as you say, capturing those ideas and getting those around how you add value to others. It's not about SEO. It's about connecting with the right people who need your help, and getting those ideas out there and making it about them. It's not about you. Geez, that took a long time to work that one out.
and it's that difference between push marketing and pull marketing. Push marketing, where you're pushing yourself onto others, trying to sell yourself, whereas pull marketing, whereas you're known for being the expert, you're known for knowing what you know, and you pull people, you attract people, and they will find you. No matter that, they will find you if you're that good, and that's what we're all aspiring to be, I guess.
So I could just listen to you for hours, and I'm sure anybody who's listening going, well, how do I find out more about Patrick? So I guess a couple of questions before we leave you. First of all, so what are you up to for the next 12 to 18 months?
So next 12 to 18 months, well, I'm currently writing my first book, which I'm really enjoying. Being a little bit careful, because it's an incredibly self-indulgent process to write your own book. You just go, I think I might just write my book today. But I'm talking to a fairly large business publisher, and I should find out next week whether we're going to go ahead and get a deal on that one. So that'll be great. And that's around that concept of VUCA. Yes. VUCA is well known in the States and in the UK, but really it's pretty unheard of, relatively speaking, in Australia. So I'm trying to, I guess, bring that concept or sort of spread it throughout Australia, and I think that the book is I'm trying to use the book to help that. So the book is basically about it's the premise of VUCA, the problems with VUCA in that people don't like being in volatile and uncertain environments, and then the solutions, and the primary solution is looking at what can you learn from an explorer's mindset, and what approach can you take, and that's that alpine style approach that I referred to previously, where you move quick and light and fast, because the old way of doing things, we used to climb mountains in a very staged, progressive way, and it would take months at a time. It's called expedition style. It used to work, like the big organisations like the cumbersome military, but it just doesn't really work now. It's too slow to respond to the changing conditions. So basically, that's the book, and I found that book writing process has been a great way also to really delve into my own intellectual property and really kind of tighten it up. And so that's kind of what I'm primarily focusing on at the moment. I'm also doing some more work overseas. So I was in Europe and the UK in April and did some work with some oil and gas producers, and I got to work with Marks and Spencers in London. That was pretty cool. I think they're the world's biggest retailer, and they're a classic example of they're one of the oldest retailers in the world, having to contend with this dramatically new playing field, and watching what they're doing was really cool. So I've got a trip coming up to the States in about a month's time, so I'm trying to just basically explore that global marketplace a bit more. I think that in Australia it's very easy to get caught up in our own market, and sometimes it can be a pretty pessimistic market, and I think that doing more work overseas has sort of shown to me that it's a really, really big world out there, and there's lots of people or organisations who kind of need help, and if you're good, they'll get you involved and they'll pay for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's been a big one, I think, for me today, listening to you, is that yourname.com gives you alpine style. It allows you to give you that flexibility to be able to move fast, and it just ties so beautifully into your message. So I think for those people listening and thinking about this, I'm thinking that we all need to read your book when it comes out, because that's really the epitome of brand you, is that alpine style gives you that flexibility. You can come back to base camp and take advantage of those mountains when the conditions are right, but you're known for you, and so I think we all definitely need to read your book. So I guess the last question I should say is, so that we can keep in touch with you and know when the book comes out, how does everybody find you?
Yeah, sure. Well, not surprisingly, they can find me at patrickhollingworth.com.
Yes.
And I've got a newsletter, so that's a fortnightly piece I do where I just basically put my ideas out there around the whole alpine style thing, about how we can better contend with VUCA. So yeah, you can find me at patrickhollingworth.com or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great. You're on LinkedIn. Any other social media? Have you got Twitter or anything like that?
Yes, Jane, you'll be pleased to know. Twitter, my Facebook business page, Google+,
you've got the
Pinterest, Instagram.
Wow.
But I mean, I find that for the work that I do, primarily with the organisations, that obviously LinkedIn is a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've also found is that I've not leveraged it to the best of my ability. I think I have 1,100 connections on LinkedIn, and haven't really actually been utilising it. So I'm actually currently, one of the things that myself and my business manager are working on, we're trying to sort of convert some of those connections and see if we can get them more interested in exactly what I do by getting them on the newsletter list.
Great. And that's, some of the other episodes that I've recorded have been around doing that, and particularly with LinkedIn. And the new book I'll mention is it's that I'm currently working on. I haven't mentioned it in any of the other podcasts just yet. But so I have a new book coming out. We're working towards September at the moment, and so it's we're on a bit of a fast track to be. We're working around the clock to get it done by September. So it's called Connect: How to Leverage Your LinkedIn Profile for Networking, Business Growth, and Lead Generation. So we might do a trade, Patrick.
Absolutely.
Send each other copies.
Put me down for a copy of that one, please.
Okay, I'll certainly do that. But thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are, and you're in such demand on the speaking circuit, and your demands with your book, and I know that your message is so relevant for the brand you message that we have on the show. But also, I really appreciate you allowing us to sort of get under the hood with your business a bit and understand a little bit more about your experience with it, so that, as you say, that's what we're here for, to help others. So
no worries. And look, I mean, one of the sort of privileges of doing this work is that you get to associate with some pretty cool and some pretty genuinely nice people, and you're one of those, Jane. So I've got all the time in the world for you.
Oh, you're a gem. Thank you. All right. Well, make sure you get in touch with Patrick. At least, make sure you keep an eye out for the book. Jump on his website and his newsletter. And if you get to see a speaking event or something that he's at, get along to see him speak, because he's awesome, and you won't miss him. He's really tall, and he's got his reddish kind of hair, so he's not hard to miss. But great to hear his message. So inspirational. Thank you so much.
It's blonde hair.
Oh, you got blonde? Oh, is that really? Haven't got that winter bit of ginger coming through, maybe, or
just
maybe
in the beard.
Surfing coming through somewhere. Getting out in salt water.
All good.
All right.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.